You can do everything right. You can stay out the way, mind your business. But just because, some gang members might not have went to the store, they might be starving, you know. Their big homie ain't got nothing to give to them. And they see you over there, ain't repping no gang or nothing. Man, they gonna try you. And a lot of people, they get scared because you go to prison. It's not just people with tattoos and all that. It's ordinary people. You do got people with a whole bunch of tattoos on their face, and it's really about that life. But most of the people in there are just ordinary people. But yeah, go gang banging on the streets and gang banging in prisons, two different things. I would say when you're in the streets, you're not. I guess you could be obligated to do certain things, but like it's not like mandatory. Can't nobody peer pressure you, and it depends on where you're at and what you're a part of. You know, like when I first got into the gang, my stepdad, he was part of the Rolling 60s Crips, and him and his homies, they just sold drugs together. That's what they did, is make money together. You know, when I was a part of it, I ain't do nothing. I just walking around getting into mess, with everybody else. But when I went to jail and prison, now you got things you got to do. You got other gang members that you're responsible for. It's kind of like how the United States, as one, we're all together. We're the United States. For people that's in the United States, and then you got states, and that's the same thing of a gang. You might have Crip, and it's one big thing, but you got states. That's different sets. And they got their own history. They got their own rules. Like you got Grape Street, you got G Stone, Schoolyard, Outlaw Gangster Crip. You got all these different sets. But when you go to prison and jail, y'all are all under one thing. You gotta look out for each other. That's the way they be saying it. They try to make it out to be a family, but I won't recommend nobody join the gang. I'm telling you, it's the worst thing you can do because it's not something you can just join and quit. No, you might go in there having like a year sentence, and the gang might order you to do something, and you have to do it. You have to. If you don't do it, your time's gonna be bad in there. You're gonna have to go PC and all that, and it's crazy. Like imagine you in your building, and you're waking up, and it's quiet, and all of a sudden somebody from a whole nother building, they getting into it with somebody because of 50 cents a noodle. Yeah, it's that crazy and it gets that petty. People will get stabbed up and all that over a noodle. They go to the store, man. They get out food or whatever. Then they can't pay it back because it's not like you give me one water and I give you one water back. No, that's not how it goes. You get one water from somebody and you got to give them back 2 waters back or 3 waters back, whatever they want it. That's how it works in there. That's how the economy is. But it's just a whole different world in there, man. It's a whole different world. I had some talking points I wanted to talk about though. I'm gonna start looking at the chat a lot more too, because I know last time I didn't look at the chat at all. My bad, guys. I know a couple of Crips locked up in Georgia State. Yeah, and I'm not gonna lie, it depends on where you're at. Some prisons, man, I'm telling you, they be having stabbings every single day. And then you got some prisons that be laid back, chill. But what if you don't join? Okay, if you don't join a gang, this is your best, that's why I would recommend for everybody, because you only got yourself to worry about. You might become a target, but all you got to do at the end of the day is, you got to treat every situation as a man. Basically, that's the only thing I can say. If somebody comes to you talking about some bull crap, hey, you got to pay me to stay on this tier or anything kind of disrespectful, Let's say somebody comes to your cell and they're like, hey, bro, you got to get out here quick. I got to talk to your cellie. You're like, hell no, this is my cell. You know what I'm saying? You got to get respect, basically. And you got to keep your respect. Doing that. I know I'm just putting out the information if you want it. I mean, if you don't need the information, that's fine for you. I just, I made a lot of mistakes in my past and, going to prison. I made a lot of damn mistakes. And I'm just trying to let people learn from my mistakes. At the end of the day, that's all I'm trying to do. Because I've seen a lot of young people go in there and, they make the wrong choices, totally wrong choices. I mean, I've seen people join gangs and it just works out way bad for them. They don't know what they're in for. They get used up. Cause this is how they pitch it to you though. They pitch it to you like a family. They come to you, be like, they'll hang out with you, say that they got your back and stuff, and then be like, you should you should join, They'll pitch it, they'll say everything that you want to hear. We got your back, ain't nobody gonna mess with you. But at the end of the day, once you're not used to them, they're gonna throw you out. But most gang members ain't even rich. I'm gonna be honest with you. That's why they're out there doing what they're doing, because they're not even rich. It's not a business that you can retire from. You know what I mean? You don't see that many old gangbangers. You really don't. Because nobody wins in the end. And then you got to think, when you're in a gang, they're going to send you on missions. You're not going to get no free ride. My first mission that they sent me on is I just got to MCTC, and that's in Hagerstown, Maryland. And there was a Crip that was talking crap about the whole compound. He was trying to say that he used to be a blood and all this, just talking down on him for no reason, just running his mouth. And it got back to the wrong people. And so I'm walking the chow, and they're sitting there talking about this. They're like, well, who just came to the compound and who ain't put in the work yet? And they look at me and they look at somebody else. And they tell us, when y'all got to set it up and y'all got to get him out of here. And that was our job. I had to, this was another Crip. I didn't barely know him. I knew him like that. But now I got to go over there and cause harm to this guy because he was running his mouth. You don't want to be put in those kind of predicaments. But say you're in a gang, right? And you're in jail, prison. In jail, the difference between jail and prison is jail is it's not structured as much as prison is. Because in prison, everybody knows what they're supposed to be doing. Everybody's been there for a long time. In jail, you got people going in and out. You might not know what the hell's going on in there. So when you get to prison, there's going to be a hierarchy. There's going to be the people at the top. There's going to be like officers, lieutenants, and stuff like that. And then you got soldiers. The only way you move up through ranks in a gang is acts of violence. That's it. There ain't no way around it. You got to commit violence to move up in the gang. And I'm gonna tell y'all this: gang members, they're not generous with their money. I'm telling you this, they're really not. When it comes down to it, if a homie is in there and he's not getting nothing to eat, everybody's supposed to chip in a little bit. But at times, people didn't even want to do that. They would do it because they were forced to, but they didn't even want to put in $2 to help the person that's supposed to be watching their back the person that's supposed to be watching their back to make sure they make it home. They didn't want to chip in $2 to them. I was around a whole bunch of outlaw gangster Crips. So that's where I switched and went to them. You had Kane and Cota. That's who introduced me. They're in prison right now for murder. They actually they already been convicted of this and all that. But yeah, they're like 20, 28, 29, and they're spending the rest of their lives, at a Supermax because they kidnapped a guy and rode him around with like a gun, and they shot and killed him. That's what they're locked up for. But their dad is in charge of the whole set. Matter of fact, he was locked up. He was like a living legend. When I was on the streets, I heard about this guy all the time. They called him Dog. When he got locked up, it had something to do with a shotgun. It's online. I just don't want to search it up. I forgot about it. But I heard about it, but I never got to meet him. I just heard from his sons, because he's like a living legend. because in every gang you're gonna have like your own history, your own rules and stuff like that. But when I went to jail, no, when I went to prison, I finally met him because he was in there at the prison I went to, and he seemed cool and everything. When like we didn't get to eat or whatever, he would chip in and he would send other homies food and stuff. But at the end of the day, I heard some stories about him though. I ain't gonna lie. I heard some crazy stories. I heard that on the outside, I mean, there's some things I can't say because I don't want no, there's some things I can't say. But I remember one of the homies, they said that he be having this house where he have all the gang members come to. And like, oh yeah, if you're a girl and you want to join a gang, you don't get beat into. You got to sleep with everybody. That's the only way you join. I swear to God, that's the only way you join. And anyways, everybody's at this house. All the young gang members on that, they bring their girlfriends over there. And if he wants to sleep with them, they let him. He's sleeping with everybody's girls and stuff. I'm like, what the hell? I heard some crazy stories. But I met him, and I mean, he's a cool guy and everything. But later in life, I found out that the gang life wasn't really for me. I don't like to look at violence all the time. People getting hurt. And that's what the gang life is all built upon: extorting people, targeting people. It's just a whole bunch of violence. That's it, and violence for no reason, just so we can come up. Just to fill our pockets, go out there and hurt people. And it's not right. And the only time you can really justify stuff like that is if the person you're going after is like somebody that hurt somebody or hurt kids or something like that, then you could probably justify it. But no, they were going after people that were about to get out, people that didn't want smoke and all that. And I just see a whole bunch of young people, and as soon as they get into jail and prison, that's the first thing they're trying to do is join a gang. When you join a gang, nobody's bigger than the gang. I don't care if you dedicated your whole life to this gang for 10 years, 20 years. You mess up really bad one time, and that's it. Like, you're gonna get dealt with. I done seen that a whole bunch. I remember they had the story about this guy that was in prison, right? His name was Bean. And I didn't know much about him, but I knew every time the Crips called a meeting, right, we would go out there to the yard, and he was around us. And usually when the gang's calling a meeting, nobody's supposed to be around. It's only supposed to be the gang. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, why is that guy, he's not part of nothing. Why is he always around us? And they told me, they was like, he used to be in charge of the whole Crip organization, but they stripped him. You want to hear why they stripped him? It's crazy as hell. He's been locked up since he was 17 or 18. He's been really young, right? And this guy is huge. He's huge as hell. But he fell in love with a guy. They call him a punk, a gump. That's what they call him. I don't got no offense to anybody that lives their life like that. I don't care. But this is just what people in prison and in jail call them. Guys that dress up as girls and that live their life as that. He fell in love with somebody like that. And as a gang member, you're not supposed to do that. That's a big no-no, right? But he was the leader of the whole compound, right? So nobody, the people that tried to talk to him, he didn't want to hear them. He was in love. He never really been with a woman. So he really fell in love with this guy. So if somebody would talk mess about the punk or whatever, he would send a hit after them. He was getting people really hurt for this guy. And it's crazy. So, everybody, they basically just stripped him. They told him, they stripped him and said he ain't that no more. Yeah, but he was going to war over this punk. He was going to war. And when I say punk, I don't mean it in a disrespectful way. I'm just so people know what I'm talking about. And the thing about it, the reason why he didn't get chopped up is because they said that they did send people to hurt him, but the guy's so big. He's got muscles on top of muscles. Every time they send people after him, he would just, lay him out. He was that big. You got to think this guy's been locked up since he was a child, a teenager. That's all he does. When you're a gang member and you're locked up, you have to work out. You can't just sit in your cell all day. No, they forced you to work out because they don't want no skinny, lazy soldiers. When they go to war, they want somebody that's physically fit. So when it's rec time or yard time, you have to get up and you have to go work out for everybody. But I remember when I was at MCTC, I had a couple run-ins, do things I didn't want to do. But when one day, they just called me on the speaker and they say, "Hey, you're packing up, you're getting transferred," and this is out of nowhere, right? And they do this sometimes. They just call your number and transfer you. It's like it's a safety thing. They just like switching people around. But they transferred me across the street to RCI, and over there it's like gangland. And when I got over there, that's when the story really steps up. I'm trying to tell you, it's a whole different world over there. I talked about it last time I was on the stream, or I did a live stream. Like when I first walked in there, it was a ghost town. There wasn't nobody around, and that's not normal. For every prison is like a little small community. There's always people walking around. You got working men out there working. You got the COs out there. There's things going on, and they have so many stabbings and so many short staff. People be quitting all the time that they be on lockdown most of the time. And when I got over there, man, it just got dangerous over there. I remember I had to do quarantine all over again. And while I was sitting in quarantine, I was sitting in my cell. I didn't really know nobody over there. I hear somebody getting an argument with somebody else through the cell doors. And he called out. He said, I put that on Crip or something. And as soon as I heard that, I knew he had to be Crip, right? Because you don't say that kind of thing unless you that. So I sent him a kite over there. I told him where I was, who I was, my rank and all that. Because when you go to prison or you go to jail, you got 24 hours to let the gang know that you're there. If you get to prison and the 24 hours are up and they find out that you were a part of the gang and you didn't let them know, you get targeted. And, it can happen. Like, you say that you in the shower and somebody sees a gang tattoo and you didn't let nobody know you were part of the gang, you're getting targeted, like chopped up. They're not gonna come over and just talk to you. Hell no, there ain't gonna be no talking. They're gonna run in your cell with knives and chop you up. I've seen it happen. Shit is crazy, man. It's not a game. It really is not. That's one of the parts I want to stress enough. It's, man, when I was in there, I knew at any moment my life could be over. Like, it felt like that, being in the active war zone. Because as soon as that cell door opens, anything could happen. If you're in a part of the gang and somebody else is having problems with somebody, it can be a gang war out there. They can't get to everybody else, but your cell is closer to theirs, so they're gonna run in your cell. You never know what's gonna happen. So you gotta be ready at all times. It's so bad. When we took a shower, we had to have another gang member watch our backs. Sometimes I had to stand outside the shower and make sure, my brother was okay in the shower. I had to do that. And I remember times where, like, we went to yard or whatever. The higher gang members, they got protection. Whatever they say, the person that's in charge of the whole compound, his word is law. If he wants somebody dead and says it, it's going to happen. That's the scary thing about it. The only time I ever seen the COs suit up in riot gear was when the leader of the Crips for the compound, he stabbed somebody. And I looked out I didn't know at the time that this was going on, but I remember that we went on lockdown and I looked in the back of my cell window and I just see COs in riot gear marching down the sidewalk. And that's what was happening. I found that out later, that he had stabbed somebody, and they knew how dangerous it was. Because if he gave the word to everybody else, they're going to do it because they have to. When somebody outranks you, you have to do what they say. You have to. It ain't like on the outside when your parents tell you to take out the trash and you say, "Oh, screw you, mom, I'm not doing that." Nah, man, if Jerome told you to go stab somebody and you didn't do it and he outranks you, man, they gonna come and pay you a visit. Like, he probably if something like that happens though, if somebody messes up in the gang, most of the time they gotta get the okay from a higher up. Like, they could be writing kites and all this is common knowledge, But yeah, there's protocols and all that. But you know, for anybody else, I'll tell you, you don't want that life. You know, you can spend 20 years putting in work for, you know, the gang. You're not getting nothing out of it in the end. Nothing. The only thing I got out of any of it, you know, the gang tattoos, what I can't even get a job now. You know, I don't get no like no Crip check or whatever. They ain't sending me no check in the mail. Hell no. When they're done for you, they throw you away. I'm serious. Dead ass, they throw you away. 99% of everything he said didn't happen. You know, the things I said, that the things I just said, I don't see why you think they weren't believable. I guarantee they did happen. I will bring somebody on here to say, I don't feel like I have to do that, but just to prove you wrong, I'll do that. And no, having face tattoos doesn't mean you're a weak character. It just means like there's different reasons why people get face tattoos. You can have somebody that's been in prison for like, you know, half their life. Like they don't even know the outside world anymore. You know, the things they feel inside, they just put on the outside. I got my face tattoos because like I was going through something traumatic when I was locked up. When I was in there, my grandparents died. My granddad died, and like it was like the end of the world for me because, you know, when I think about something good that happened to me, that's what I think about. Going to their house when I was younger, being with my brother and stuff. And you know, I didn't get to say goodbye or nothing. I just had these memories. I'm like, damn, I'm sitting here in prison. You know, I can't even say goodbye to the ones I love. Like I was going through it. You know, you do a lot of crazy things when you're really going through things, you know. And then it hit me harder though, because after my granddad passed away, my grandma started to get sick because they were together like 60 years. And you know, when you're together with somebody that long, when one goes, the other one is gonna go follow after. I didn't believe it until it happened. You know, and she didn't go like fast. You make excuses for being a weak man. Enjoy my $2. Well, thank you for the $2. I appreciate it. Thank you for the comment and $2. I appreciate it. But anyways, my grandma, I was talking to her for like, you know, like a couple of months, and I was telling her, I was promising her, I was like, Grandma, I'm gonna come home and I'm gonna get to see you. But you know, my lawyer kept on telling me, when we go to court, you're gonna get probation and you're gonna get some time served. Because I did like freaking like 3 years in the county jail on a first degree assault. Like this is back when COVID was going on, so the court system was messed up. You had somebody in there, they went next door. They were in apartments, right? He went next door to a house he usually goes to, and he didn't get permission to go this time into the guy's house. He went in there and took a piece of bologna, and he was in jail for that. And he had been in jail for like a year for one piece of bologna. I swear to God, I swear. That was the dumbest charge I seen in there though. But yeah, when I found out my grandma died, man, I didn't care at that point, man. I really didn't. I was like, you know what? I'm just, you know, this is my life now. When you're around demons and stuff, in prison, there's a whole lot of demons. And when you're around them, man, you start to become one. You got Crips, right? And then you got different sets. But when you go to jail and prison, everybody's supposed to come together. Like on the streets, you might have some sets that are at war with each other and stuff. Like, you know, I ain't gonna lie, when you're on the streets in California or something like that, you're liable, if you're in the gang like the Crips or whatever, you're liable to get killed by another Crip because they be at war with each other. But now when you go to prison and jail, you guys are supposed to drop all that, and y'all supposed to, you know, be under one flag, and y'all supposed to watch out for each other. So somebody that is your enemy on the streets is now, you know, somebody that has to watch your back in there. It's a crazy world in there. I'm trying to tell you. I remember I joined the Indian service, and basically that was the Native American service. It's a religious service, and I joined it because they told me that they be smoking the tobacco out there. So I knew I wanted to get access to it, right? So I started doing that, right? I started going out there they had it every Tuesday. You go out there and they have like this little peace pipe and they put tobacco in it and they pass it around. You know, they be out there chanting and doing a whole bunch of crazy stuff. I just went out there for that. That's the only reason I went out there for. Because, you know, they would give you some of the tobacco, and then I would take it back to the unit and I would sell it. And trust me, a little bit of tobacco, man, you make like $40 off of that stuff. Like, you know, it's a hustle in there. But I remember, you guys remember when I told y'all when I seen the CO suit up and they were going after the Crip that was in building, I forgot what building he was in, but they went down there and got him, right? They put him in segregation. He was in the hole. But when he got out of the hole, they put him in the building I was in, you know, the same building. I think it was building 1. I think that's what building we were in. And he went on Indian service. So me and him went together. So since me and him is part of the same thing, I had to watch his back. Anything anywhere he went, I had to go with him, you know. And believe it or not, the gang members that run the whole compound, like for the Crips, the Bloods, all that, they got a lot of power in there. I'm not even joking with you. They can get people moved and all that. I didn't believe it until I seen it, because they had the jail has this thing called intel, right? It's like a intel unit. They listen to inmate rumors and all that. If they hear about prison gangs going to war, whatever, they'll try to intervene and stop it. And how they do that is they will call the hidden members of the gangs into a room, and intel will sit down and talk to them. But this gives the gang members power, because they can tell the intel. They can be like, hey, I got somebody that's in building 2 and I need him moved. If he's not moved, we're gonna have problems. And to keep problems down, sometimes they would do this stuff because they're thinking they're trying to keep problems down. But you know, inmates, they be trying to finesse some things. So when I got to RCI, I was in there with this dude. His name was Big 30, right? Did I tell y'all? No, I didn't tell y'all that I went in his cell yet, did I? So I was in my cell, right? And I heard him call out. He made a Crip sound. I sent a kite down there. I told him who I was, my rank. I told him all the information, right? So me and him start talking out the cell door. And then we got a CO. We asked the CO, we said, hey, CO, can I move in there with such and such? Eventually they let me move in there. So I'm in the cell with Big 30 now. We in there working out. We in there just, you know, just talking and stuff like that. Just doing a whole bunch of stuff. It feels like you in there with your brother, right? And we get done quarantine. They move us in the same building but a different wing. And when we get to that wing, we in there with the guy who runs the whole compound for the Crips. His name was EA. And I know you can tell who has rank in there because they got the bodyguards. You know, he don't ever walk alone. He got people watching him, watching his back. So, you know, he comes to us, he introduces himself and all that. And as he's talking to Big 30, Big 30 tells him about, you know, working out. Big 30, you know, he's like Arnold Schwarzenegger. I mean, he got muscles on top of muscles, you know. I ain't gonna lie, with the whole time we were working up, I couldn't even keep up with him. Man, that man would do a whole bunch of burpees and just push-ups nonstop. So EA seen that and told Big 30, he said, hey, when we go out there for yard, I need you to run the workout for the Crips. So that's what he started doing. Every time they called yard call and we went out there to the yard, all the Crips had to get together and be on the blacktop. And Big 30 would be in front of all of us. And, you know, he would do burpees and be like, hey, everybody drop down and give me 20 burpees. And we got to do it. We're all lined up and we're all working out. And, you know, if you look over, you see the Bloods over there. They're doing the same exact thing. You look over there, you see the BGF. Everybody's working out. You know, it's kind of like an intimidation thing. You know, everybody's trying to get over on everybody else. It's crazy in there. But anyways, you know, life was good. You know, there was no drama, no nothing. I ain't gonna lie, Big 30, he loved that K2. And every time he got on that stuff, I hated it, man, because he be acting weird. Man, I remember one time we got the shadow boxing in there, right? And we got a little too aggressive. And we were in there really like, you know, wrestling around. We were like, you know, picking each other up and, you know, wrestling around. You know, I ain't gonna lie. You would think we'd be fighting in there if you didn't know any better. But anyways, one day after like 2 weeks of being in there, EA walks up to the cell in the morning, right? And he says, hey, Big 30, come to the door. I need to talk to you. So Big 30 goes to the door and EA's like, hey, I need you to move to building 1. This is how I ended up in building 1. I'm about to tell y'all. This is how I ended up. He said, I need you to go to building 1 and I need you to take over the whole building. Cause that's how it works. When so EA, he runs the whole compound, right? Then you got people who run the buildings. So EA's in charge of all the buildings. There's like 5 buildings. He's in charge of. He's the big dog in charge of all the buildings, right? Then you got other people that's in charge of just one building. So the guy who was in charge of building 1 at the time was a white dude. I forgot his name, but I remember he had cornrows and like he had tattoos on his face. And he had made a mistake, and this is what he did. I made a video about this. But anyways, he moved in the cell with a guy that was a blood member, right? But it wasn't just any blood member. He had rank and all that, and he was an older guy. And basically, he started puppeteering. Like he put that the white Crip under his wing, and the white Crip, ran the whole building for the other Crips. So, so since this guy has him under his wing, everybody under this guy, he's got control of too. You know what I'm saying? I think I explained that right. I don't know. I think so. But anyways, so the rest of the Crips in that building, they didn't agree with this. They seen all the calls he was making. It didn't seem right. It seemed like they were basically doing whatever the blood wanted them to, right? Because they were. So I remember one of the Crips, they bucked up to the blood that was doing all this. His name was Merc, right? So Merc, he sent a hit after this Crip. A whole bunch of blood members ran into this Crip's room and they stabbed him up. And the whole time, the guy that was in charge of that building, he knew about it. He let it happen. And so everybody found out about this. So EA is telling us, hey, we need you to go, Big 30, we need you to go to building 1. You're going to take over his spot. And I'm getting him moved. I already talked to Intel. We already greenlit this. He's getting moved to building 2. And I already told y'all that's the trenches, right? And this is the play it was. As soon as he gets moved to building 2, he getting flown out. And that's what happened. But EA, he looked at me and he told me, he said, hey, basically you gotta go with EA. I mean, you gotta go with Big 30. And whatever Big 30 wants, if he needs help doing anything, you assist him. I want y'all to get that building, back in order. So that was our job. We didn't want to go anywhere because, it was nice and chilled and laid back where we were. But, when you're given an order, you got to do it. So me and Big 30, we pack all of our stuff up and we put all of our stuff in the little yellow bin that has wheels in it. And we're sitting there going down the sidewalk and we're going to building 1. And EA, he's walking with us. And if you've been locked up in Hagerstown, you know who I'm talking about. It ain't no secret. You know who I'm talking about. But anyways, he walks us down there and he tells us, basically, you know what you're supposed to do, get down there and do it. And went down there and, as soon as we got there, the white Crip that was getting moved out, he was gathering all his stuff up, his TV and all that. And he was trying to act big and bad, He seen us coming in there. I didn't know what they knew was going on, but me and Big 30, we already knew what was going to happen to him. Like EA, he had already told us. He said once that guy gets moved down to building 2, he's getting stabbed. He's getting chopped up. We already knew this. So I'm sitting there watching him. I already know what's happened to him, but I can't, I'm not gonna say nothing to him. He let somebody, that could have been me. He let one of his own brothers get chopped up. And like when you sit back and you think about that, it's like imagine you got somebody watching your back that's supposed to watch your back, and they go on the side with the enemy and they let you get messed up. Anything could have happened to that guy. If they would have ran in that Crip cell and they would have hit him in the wrong artery or something, he could have bled out and died. Stuff like that is not taken lightly. So, he did it on himself. That's why I tell people you shouldn't join a gang. You really shouldn't. At the end of the day, when you join a gang, it's not about you no more. Like you don't matter no more. You do what you're told. And the gang members, they're going to put rules in place that benefit the higher ups. When you join a gang and you're down here, because you're going to start off down here, you're going to start off nothing. You got to do a whole lot of BS to get up here, and you might never make it up there. You might mess around and make it halfway, and end up, catching a charge and losing your whole life. You know, you gotta think about it. I met some gang members that was locked up, like they were 60 years old, 50 years old. They ain't never had a family. They ain't never experienced things. I'm sitting there talking to them. I did a little bit of stuff. I'm only 38 years old, right? But I've been to the beach. I went out and I went to different states and stuff. So as I'm telling this to somebody that's been locked up for like 40 years, man, they can't believe it. They only hear about this stuff in the magazines and stuff. They're like, damn, you could just see it in their eyes, man. They're like, damn, I want to ever get to enjoy that. I want to ever get to, have a family. I want to ever get to just sit on the porch and have a cup of coffee. And, they won't ever experience this. That's their life. If you ever did time in jail, in prison, everybody that goes in there, they're trying to get out. Nobody goes there and be like, oh yeah, this is the life. Hell no, they're trying to get out. So imagine somebody tells you this nightmare is your new life. That's why I tell everybody, please think about what you're doing out there on the streets, and you gotta weigh the options. Is it really worth it? If you're out there doing the same things over and over, eventually you're going to slip up. Something's going to go wrong. One time, it can go right 100 times, but one time, something's going to go wrong and you're going to end up going down. I've seen it happen a million times. One matter of fact, I'll tell you, my stepdad, the one that introduced me to the life of Crip and all that, man, he used to brag to me all the time. He used to be like, man, when I was selling drugs, I was living, he would brag about it and say he was living so, so good and stuff, right? Thank you for that flow state. Appreciate it. But he used to tell me, he used to brag about it all the time, right? I was going to say your name, but I couldn't pronounce it. I ain't going to lie. That's another thing about being in prison stuff. You might be, I ain't going to lie. I wish I was a little bit better with my spelling and stuff. I had to go back and get my GED. I ain't gonna lie, man. Stay in school. That's what I say. But anyways, he's a brag about it all the time, right? And I used to believe him. I'm like, damn, you make it seem like you got like thousands of dollars in your pocket all the time, right? So my mom, she used to run an escort service. And when Craigslist came out, basically it put everybody out of business. Everybody had an escort service. Basically, if you don't know what escort service is, basically, if you got a business in the yellow pages, you get girls, you meet a whole bunch of girls and you send them out to hotels to spend time with, military guys, people that are lonely or whatever. It gets to be your girlfriend for an hour. You got to pay for it. So basically my mom was doing that. She ran a business, and basically Craigslist came out and everybody became self-employed. They didn't need her business anymore. They can do it on themselves. So times was tough during there. So my stepdad, he went back to selling drugs. And at first, he was doing it. Like, he had a lot of money. She didn't need anything. He was paying all the bills and everything. He had extra money. He just giving me money all the time. But then he was selling to this one girl, and she got caught up by the police. It had nothing to do with him at all. She got caught up on her own self. And she made him a deal. She said, I know somebody selling, and I'll help y'all set him up if y'all be lenient. She became an informant. That's basically what an informant is. If somebody gets jammed up, and instead of doing their time or whatever, they agree to help the police catch a bigger fish. That's basically what an informant is, So she basically told them that about my stepdad selling the drugs. And she ordered the drugs. She was wired up and all that. He came like he always does and served her some of the drugs, and he left. And at this time, he done bought a whole bunch of stuff for the house. We had big screen TVs, flat screens. We had, I think at the time it was like PS3s or something. I think that was the big thing around. This is back in like 2000, 2007 or something like that. I'm trying to remember. I think it was, but anyways, we had a house full of, high luxury stuff. Man, by the time he got back to the house, the fucking SWAT team, I don't know what you call them, they ran in the house, they locked him up. And he had a gun and everything in the closet. I think he had a gun on him. I can't remember. I don't remember if it was in the closet or on him. But in North Carolina, they got this law where for every bullet that you got in your gun, it's an extra year. I heard that from somebody. I think that's true. So he had a gun, and every bullet he had in the gun was an extra year that they were charging him with. But they took him to jail, right? And they didn't just take him to jail. It was almost Christmas time, right? Christmas was like a week away. So he was doing all this to help get Christmas presents, right? Man, they took everything in the house. Because to them, they're like, okay, he's selling drugs. So everything in the house has been paid for by drug money. So we're taking it as evidence or something. Man, they took the TVs. They took all the presents under the trees. They took everything. They took the car. They took everything. Hell, the only thing they didn't take was his pit bull. That's the only thing they didn't take. So basically, we were homeless for that little bit of time. We didn't have nothing. That's the dangers of selling drugs, man, because it doesn't just affect you. It affects your whole family. He went to jail. My mom didn't have nobody then. She's back to square one with kids now. And they done took everything out of the house. So not only can she not pay bills, she can't pay nothing, right? And we ain't got nothing. So he got some crazy time. He got like 8 years or something like that. But my mom, she waited for him for like, I would say like a year, right? She's like, yeah, that's my man. I'm gonna stay by him. But after them years, man, she did I guess she got lonely, man. She moved on to somebody else. So by the time he eventually, and this is my brother's dad, right? He's a good guy. I ain't gonna lie, he's a good guy. Since getting out, he changed his life around. He don't sell drugs or nothing no more. He's a chef at like a restaurant. I forgot what kind of restaurant it is, but yeah, he's doing it. He's a chef and all that. He got out of prison and he even walked to work. He lived back with his sister and everything. He didn't have nothing. He didn't have nothing to come back to. But I talked to him a couple times since getting out, and he's doing real good. So you can do it. I mean, if you ever been stuck in that predicament, or if your life ain't going good and you ain't got that much around, it can always get worse. I'm trying to tell you, it can always get worse. And I'm sorry if you wrote something in the comments and I didn't get to see it, but there was a lot of crazy comments going on around earlier, and I wasn't trying to sit there and just keep on reading that. Cause I mean, the comments don't bother me, but if I'm just sitting there, just reading negative comment, negative comment, it's going to do something to me. I'm like, man, maybe everybody hates me. I don't fucking know. But so my bad about not reading the comments. How do you have a phone in prison? I'm not in prison. I'm out of prison. This is just a green screen. See? This is fake. I've been out of prison for it's almost been 2 years. So since getting out of prison, I'm staying back from the gang life and all of that, because I try to tell my mistakes and the things I went through so people don't have to go through it themselves. Why go through all these things in life and not talk about it? It could help somebody else out. You know what I'm saying? That's why on my page, I have a lot of interviews with people that's locked up or did time or they worked in prisons. Because I believe that, every story, has a purpose. It could help somebody, Yeah, I don't know. Man, everybody thinks that I'm locked up for some reason just because of this. I don't, like I don't, I'm not going to make fun of nobody or nothing, but man, you can't tell that this is fake. I mean, I guess. I mean, I ain't gonna lie. I did get on TikTok, right? And there is people that get locked up and they're on TikTok. They're on TikTok and they be trying to holler at girls and stuff. Man, don't fall for that. I'm telling you, if you're a female and you're in this chat room, don't go on TikTok and be trying to talk to no inmates over there, man, because they're just going to use you up. They call it, what do they call it? Chain gang. It's a real thing. Because when you're doing that, basically it's an inmate that's locked up and they're trying to talk to as many girls as they can. And they're trying to get money from every girl that they talk to. And that's how they survive. They survive on females, like, because they're going to tell the female whatever she wants to hear to make herself feel better and all that. They'll be like, you're the one I want to be with. When I get out, I'm gonna be with you. The whole time they're talking to like 7 other girls, Man, Inmates got some good finesse game, I'm trying to tell you. Nah, but it is common for inmates to have phones. If you've been following my channel for a little bit, you notice I did a couple interviews with inmates that been locked up while I was doing it, right? I'm gonna let you know this. If an inmate has a phone and they're in jail or prison, that means they got something going on. Like that means they're high up there in the gang. So I just want to let y'all know this because I don't want y'all thinking that I'm just bringing on random people, random inmates that ain't got nothing going on. Because if you got a phone in prison, you know how much a phone costs in prison? They run anywhere up to $1,000 in prison. They're hard to get. You know, you got to be somebody to have a phone. So anybody that I bring on for an interview that's an inmate, he's a somebody. I'm not gonna lie. If you've been to prison, you already know that. Oh, that's why females be asking me for money. I ain't gonna lie. Hey, that didn't apply to everybody. Like, that was only for them kind of people that do that. Now you got some good dudes out there, they be hardworking and they be doing their thing, and they be the ones, I wouldn't call it like a simp or whatever, but they know what they're doing in life, and the females, they're dependable, but you know how women are, man. Sometimes women like the bad guys. And an inmate, you don't know how many times I done watched like fucking one inmate talk to like 10 different girls, and each one of them is sending this guy like thousands of dollars. And I'm like, what the hell? What the what? Like, what are you telling these girls, man? Like, he's like, I'm making them fall in love. I'm telling them what they want to hear. And some of these girls be having husbands, it's crazy. What's up, Necro? I think I pulled a nerve. Man, I ain't gonna lie, Necro. Man, I wish your luck. I wish your health the best, man. I hope you I know your health's been pretty bad lately. I hope things, improve for you. Cause you're a good dude, man. I ain't gonna lie. I love I be scrolling YouTube and I be seeing your posts and stuff. Like which rock band was the best. I'll be liking that. Cause I'm white and black, right? So on my mom's side, she listens to rock and stuff like that. And on my dad's side, they listen to rap and stuff like that. But when I'm growing up, I used to like, Linkin Park and a couple rock songs and stuff like that. But when I got around like the black side of my family, they're sitting there looking at me. They're like, what the hell's wrong with you? Like they'll make me feel weird for liking that kind of music. So the only time I can really listen to that was when I'm by myself. And I ain't gonna lie, look, I was even in prison, right? And look, I got my cellie. I talk to my cellie now to this day, right? And he could tell you, his name is Bones. He's from Baltimore. And I remember being in a cell with him when I was at RCI. He's an older black guy from Baltimore. And I remember we had our tablets. And I used to always listen to like Korn and a couple other rock songs. And he could hear it. He'd be like, man, what the hell? You listening to rock? I'd be like, yeah, man, what the fuck? It's just music. He used to tell me all the time, he'd be like, Crime, you a white boy for real. You're not even black, you a white boy. I remember this one day, the CO, he called me out on some BS, right? We was out for rec time, right? All the inmates was, and the CO was like, everybody lock down, everybody lock in, rec time's over. So everybody usually walks back to their cell slow as hell. You're about to go back in the cell, the door's about to shut, and you're about to be in there for a couple hours. I don't remember what I was doing, but I ran to somebody else's cell, and I was in there, I was at the door and I was talking to him. I think I was trying to get some food or something, right? I think it was a store man. I was trying to get food from him. And the CO got on the speaker and he was like, Inmate Dorsey. That's what they call you the last name. It's like, Inmate Dorsey, lock the hell in. And then I wasn't responding. I was ignoring him. And he was like, hey, white guy, the only white guy on the tier. And I'm sitting there looking around. And, it ain't nothing but like two other black guys up there. There ain't no white people out there. And then somebody got in the door and they was like, yo, Crime, he talking about you. You gonna let him disrespect you like that? I ain't gonna lie. As soon as I was like, he talking about me, I started laughing. I was like, damn. Cause you know, if you're light skinned, right? If you're mixed, you know what I'm about to say is true, right? If you go outside and the sun's beaming down on you, your skin gets darker. But when you're inside of a house or whatever for a long period of time, you get light skin. So I was in prison so long and in jail that my skin turned like, it looked like I was like really, really, really white. Cause I didn't have no sun. I literally drew on my face. I ain't gonna lie, I pretty much did. I got a cross because I was trying to. I ain't gonna lie. When you get to prison, you start praying and everything. I started praying. I was like, please, Jesus. I ain't never been the praying type, but if you get me out of this stupid ass place, man, I promise you, I will, yo, I would do whatever you want me to. Like I seen some people, your religious, whatever your religious thing is, right? You can pray to this Satan and all that. The jail will give you a Bible, a Satan Bible. I seen a lot of people have this little black book. If you ask for it, they have to give it to you. It's like it's got its own word to it, and it's crazy. I'm like, damn, you're praying to the devil to get you out of here. I'm like, what the fuck? But yeah, some people, man, they'll be. You gotta imagine. There's a whole bunch of killers in there, a whole bunch of murderers. There was some cells you go into, and there'd be graffiti all over the cell, right? From people that used to stay in that cell. Man, there used to be like pentagrams and all that shit. I was in this one cell, and this guy drew a picture of this female, and it looked like a real female. I'm not gonna lie. I ain't gonna lie. That's back when we didn't have any girl books or nothing. So I imagine some people they'd wait for their cellmate to go out to rec time, and then they put a little sheet over the door, and they start gunning to whatever that girl was on the wall. You said cap? How's that cap, man? What the fuck? What's cap about that? Name? How's that cap? About the part about the the devil books? That's not cap. Look it up. They give you that shit in there. I promise you. If you know somebody that did jail time or prison time, ask them. If you pray to the devil in there and stuff, and you ask for like the devil Bible, they'll give it to you in there. I'm not making that up. That's true. Hey, yeah, you ain't ever take my Roman noodles. I ain't gonna lie. But I ate so many Roman noodles, man. I would till this day. Every time I go into the grocery store and I'm walking in the Roman noodle the aisle, with all the soups and stuff, man, I hurry up and get the hell out of there, man. I don't want to see that. That shit makes me sick to my stomach. Every time I see noodles, man. When I first got out, right, I try to make a hookup. Cause when you're locked up and you're eating a hookup, it tastes so freaking good, right? It'd be the best thing ever because you'd be starving. But since I've been out, I try to make a hookup and I'm sitting there eating it and I'm like, damn, man, this tastes like crap. I was like, damn, it tastes a lot better when I was locked up for some reason. Oh yeah, I was starving at the time. That's why it tastes a lot better. They just be throwing anything in there, man. We're fucking throw a noodle in there, fish. They call it stir fries, but when you're starving, anything will taste good. I guarantee you. Man, you can make noodles out of anything. I've seen people, bust some noodles up and they turned it into pizza crust. They made a whole pizza in there. It was crazy. Thank you for the flow state, Vanessa. I appreciate it. I remember my first week in jail, my cellie, he made me a pizza, right? But it wasn't hot at all. It was a cold pizza. It was a jail pizza, right? And that's basically when you make the crust out of noodles, you bust them down. Damn, how did he make the crust? I forgot, man. He used the noodles and I think it was chips and bread. Oh yeah, that's what it was. It was noodles and bread. That's how he made the crust, right? Man, it tastes like shit. I ain't gonna lie, it tasted awful. But I was so hungry, I ate it anyways. I just sitting there, I wasn't even fucking tasting it. Cause that's one thing about jail. The food sucks so bad in there. I'm not even lying. They had probably like 3 good trays, and that was like the hot dogs and Yeah, chicken tray. And I used to like a morning tray too. They call it S&S, shit on the shingle. It's like brown gravy, and it's got like cereal next to it. I ain't gonna lie, that it was good as hell. Biscuit gravy or something like that. The meat is not good. The meat is awful. Everything in prison and jail is not real hamburger. It's not real meat. It's all like plant food. It's soybean. All the hamburger, all that. The only real meat they got is the chicken. That's it. That is it. And I'm not gonna lie, on chicken day, it's crazy on chicken day. You're liable to lose your life on chicken day. You got some people be so hooked on K2 and stuff, right? They go around and they be like, hey, I got a chicken tray on the market. You know, they be trying to trade their food for that next high, right? Man, that ended up trading their food for the drugs. And by the time the chicken day comes, they're being greedy. They're trying to trade their chicken tray again. They already owe this guy the chicken tray, but they don't care. They're trying to give it to this guy now. You know, I've seen a lot of people get hurt for that. I'm not gonna lie. Inmates don't play around with that chicken. I ain't gonna lie. You see a whole bunch of people walking around with like 8 pieces of chicken. They go crazy for that stuff, man. I'm not even joking. Now I did my time in Maryland. I had a homie. He did his time in Florida, and he told me some stories, some crazy. Like I ain't gonna lie, that's one state. I got an interview in Florida on July the 4th. I forgot the podcast that invited me, but I'm gonna try to go out there. But I done heard some crazy story about Florida, some crazy stories from the outside. And when I was inside jail, my silly, his name was Showtime. He had Showtime across his neck, right? And he told me he was in Florida and he got bad on Fetty and all that, the drugs. And to supply his habit, he tried to rob a bank. So he ended up robbing the bank, and his getaway driver was like his girlfriend and her friend. They was waiting out in the car, and he was in the bank robbing them. Thank you for that, Primo. I think that was the name, Primo. He was in the bank, and they put, yeah, thank you for that, Primo. They put a stack of money in his bag. Yeah, thank you for that, Primo. They put a stack of money. Thank you for that, Lixia, Alex, and Primo, Calvin. But anyways, they put the bag and they put a chip in there where like they could track him. He didn't know that. I think they put like a dye pack in there and a whole bunch of stuff. I'm not gonna keep saying it, bro. Thank you, yo. But anyways, he ran out to the car and he was trying to get away, right? And he's like, damn, man. Like he's like 5 blocks away from the bank, but the cops are like setting up like roadblocks everywhere he goes. They're setting up roadblocks. I appreciate it, bro. I ain't gonna lie. I appreciate it. But he's like, damn, it's like they know where we are. And he got stopped at a red light. And the police were going from car to car, checking the cars. And he was in the back seat and he put like some clothes over him. And he's sitting there. He pointed the gun. The girls are getting scared. They're like, oh shit, what are we doing? What are we gonna do? He pointed the gun at him. He told me this, right? This is the way he told me. I don't know if this is true or not. I'm just relaying what I remember, what he's telling me. Thank you for that, Brandon. But he said he pointed the gun at the girl and he was like, man, if y'all say anything, y'all are done. Thank you for that, McDonald. I'm all right. Anybody that sends anything from now on, I'm grateful for it and I thank you. But anyways, he pointed the gun at the girl and he was like, if you say anything, you're done. So they're scared as hell. The cop gets to their car and he's in there talking to him. And the cop notices the big, a lump under the clothes. So he orders the girls out of the car and, they catch him. He didn't get hurt. He could have got hurt. He had a gun on him. You know how that goes, man. They don't care about that. They see that gun, your ass is gone. He knows that, People like that, they don't want to lose their life because they want to live to get high. He don't want to die. Hell no. He gave up quick. But he told me when he got to the prison, he said the prison in Florida is crazy as hell in there. I remember him telling me a couple of stories, man. I got to find out his real name and try to bring him on for an interview because he was in the Hagerstown jail with me. Thank you for that, Brandon. And they came down from Florida because his parole or something. He got a parole violation, and they came and got him. He had to do his time in Florida. So I don't know what happened to him, you know. But this guy was crazy, man. He told me, he said that in Florida they got a fighting style down there. Like, people would have like a pair of clothes that they would never touch. You know, they would iron it up and everything. They're nice clothes. And whenever they go to fight somebody, they put on these clothes, right? And they're all looking good. And they go into the cell, and his partner will go into the cell, and they start hitting on the sink, making like a beat, you know. And the guy, when you're fighting him, he'll start dodging with the beat, you know, like flexing and stuff. There was a word for this stuff. I don't know what he said it was, but it's like a fighting style that they have. So the whole time this guy throwing punches and the guy sitting there dodging it, he might have a hat on or something, and like he'll take his hat and like he'll do like this and like, you know, do like that. It's like clowning the other person while dodging the punches. I don't know what you call it. He had a certain word for it. It's a fighting style down there in Florida. Swifting or something like that. He called it something. I don't know. But, you know, I couldn't imagine it. It sounded crazy as hell. It's the awful shuffle. Oh, so you know what it is. Yeah, it's a real thing, I guess, man. It's a real thing. I tried to look up videos of it, man. I couldn't find any videos of it. So I didn't know if it was real or not. But the way he was describing it, man, he said he didn't know what the hell it was. He said his partner, he said it was a young dude. He used to chill with this young dude, this light-skinned dude, all the time. And the young dude got into a fight with a gang member. It was like a Jamaican gang member or something like that. And he was like, yeah, I want to fight you. Come up with my cell. So he told Showtime, he was like, hey, come with me, man. I want to make sure they don't jump me. There's like 3 of them. So Showtime was like, yeah, I'm going to make sure they don't jump you. He goes to the cell, and the Jamaican guys start coming in there. But all 3 of them go in there. So Showtime's like, oh, whoa. Y'all ain't about to jump him. And he's like, man, chill out, man. I got you. We ain't going to jump your brother. That's how he said it, right? So the one guy goes over to the sink, and he starts hitting the sink. And, you know, the other guy, he starts, you know, dancing around, and he whooped the shit out of that guy. The light-skinned guy, he whooped the shit out of him. The light-skinned guy didn't even touch him. So every time the light-skinned guy go to throw a punch, he would dodge it. And, you know, he might dodge it and, like, come over here and like, kiss his cheek or something. Just, like, do all kinds of disrespectful, crazy things to, like, show out. You know, it's kind of like the only thing that reminds me of is, like, a freestyle. You know, when people used to be freestyling, and they try to get over on the other person and stuff, you know, they always try to outdo the other person. Well, you know, you're doing a whole bunch of crazy ass mess, you know, while you're fighting. You know, I don't know. It sounds crazy. The way he described it a lot better, yo. I wish I could find him so he can describe it to you guys, because, you know, it stuck out in my head. I never forgot it. But he said, man, it was treacherous down there, man. He told me, I don't want to butcher some of his stories, so I'm just telling y'all what I remember. But he told me he had the celly, and the celly, from a young age, this guy has been like in a mental institutions. Like he was in like padded rooms and shit. Like and he was addicted to K2. Anytime that guy got some K2 and started smoking it, he would get down and start barking like a dog and pretend to be a dog. He said he did this every day. Showtime said he was in the cell with this guy. It was a short black guy. And, you know, he was just crazy. Everybody knew not to mess with this guy. But one time, this guy got into it with, dang, what do you call him? Fuck. Some Muslims. I don't know how I forgot that, but he got, the crazy guy got into it with a whole bunch of Muslims, right? And they were coming to stab him, right? And the crazy dude that's in there with Showtime, he got all the way naked, right? And he had 2 swords. It was like 2 swords. It wasn't like knives. They were swords. He went to the bath. He had like baby oil or something all over him. and like the Muslims came in there to like, you know, to take care of him. And he was sitting there screaming in the bathroom. He's like, "Oh, y'all gonna take me? Come on!" Like all crazy and stuff. Man, they said they left him alone. Everybody was scared to go over there. Cause you imagine somebody sitting there naked. A naked man is in front of you with two big swords. Are you gonna go over there and try to mess with that guy? Hell no, man. Fuck no. They said, man, and he said the Muslims were deep as hell too, and they didn't play down there in Florida. He said that part. He said they did not play. It was crazy, yo. But yeah, that guy Showtime I'm talking about, he was Crip. See, he was Crip, right? But he was a Crip that had a drug problem, right? He loved that K2. I'm telling you. Matter of fact, this guy, Showtime, he loved any drug he can get a hold of. He was bad on them drugs, man. I'm telling you, he was really bad. He told me stories about himself getting situations because he would get in debt with the drug man in prison. He would go to somebody selling drugs and he would be like, "Hey, get a large." First, like he's good with his words, right? He would talk to somebody and get you, you know, to like him and stuff. He would get close to somebody, and you know they'll feel comfortable and give him a large, you know, chunk of drugs because he done talked such a good game. You know, he done said he's making all this money. He's making this sound like, you know, like he's the man. So he tricked somebody and they gave him a large, you know, quantity of drugs, and he didn't have the money to pay it back. So, you know, they could just go to him and cause him harm, but since he's a Crip, they went to the person above him because, you know, they can hurt him, but they're not gonna get their money back. So if they go to somebody above him, you know, maybe they'll make him pay because at the end of the day, they want to get their money. If they can get their money, they're gonna do that. But you know, if they ain't gonna get their money, then they're just gonna hurt you to you know, because they can't let it slide because everybody's gonna start playing with them. I appreciate that the gifts. Thank you for that, Don. Thank you for that, Brandon. But dang, what was I talking about? Yeah, he told me. He said the rest of the Crips, they started like, you know, disliking him because he was getting them into a whole bunch of situations because of his drug debt. He kept on going and getting in debt with other people. And, you know, every time he did that, he put everybody else in harm's way. Thank you for that, Blessing. Every time he put everybody else in harm's way. And you can't do that. When you're a gang member, you know, people are going to get tired of that crap. You out there, your actions come back on the whole gang. So if you out there keep on messing up, you're getting everybody else involved in your stuff. So eventually they're going to get tired of that. And, you know, they try to put him out the whip. Eventually, this is how it ended. This is how he told me. Appreciate that. They said they got him on a payment plan, and every month he had to pay back a certain amount of money. That's how he ended up, you know, getting straight or whatever. I'm trying to think. Is there any other stories he told me? No, but basically he said the COs in Florida, he said some of them were racist as hell. He did tell me that part. He said he remember like he made it seem like these COs were like from Texas or something. The way that he was talking, he made it seem like, you know, they had like 10-gallon hats, you know what I'm talking about, the cowboy hats. That's the way he made it seem. I don't know if it's really like that or not, but he made it seem like, you know, they're real country down there in Florida. The COs, he said they don't play at all down there. He said they really don't. Jail or you did time in prison, go to my page and comment on any of my videos. If you want to do an interview, you know, I just gotta have a way to. Matter of fact, I made a post where I put my number and email on the post. If you want to come on for an interview, I do a lot of interviews with a lot of people. If you want to come on and share your story, go to that post and give my information and email me, and we'll set up a date. And, you know, we'll get your story out there. I like to put people's stories out there because, you know, somebody might learn from it. I got 2 interviews that I'm working on right now. I'm editing the videos, but the one guy, he did a little bit of time in jail, but he was in the streets dealing with drugs really bad. Like you know, he grew up, his mom was selling the prescription pills and all that, and he grew up around it. So, you know, his life started out rough. and he told me about all these crazy stories, from guys from being homeless in a motel with his girlfriend to guys trying to get him drunk so they can talk to his girl behind his back. He told me a lot of crazy stories, and I'm trying to put that out there. He just started doing his own YouTube podcast and all that. So I'm hoping if I put his interview out there, maybe put some eyes on his videos, because I looked at his page and he only had like 3 views on some of his videos, and some of his stories are real. They're all real, right? But he tells the truth on all of his videos. It gives you a real look at somebody that dealt with drug addiction. Because I'm not gonna lie, drug addiction is, that's the hardest thing in the world to overcome. So if you meet anybody that used to be hard on drugs and they're not today, man, I'm telling you, you gotta give them their props, man. Because a drug addiction it's so hard to overcome that. So anybody that overcame that, I give them props, man. My whole life, my mom was addicted to crack and all that, right? She had like 13 kids, and we didn't get to grow up together because she never had custody of none of her kids. So we all like resented my mom for that. But it took her a long time. But she got at the age of like 50, no, at the age of like 45, she stopped doing everything, right? She just cut everything off cold turkey. She got tired of it all. She hit a window. She had a bad episode, almost killed herself, and she had enough, you know. And I seen her struggle with it, and it's not a hard thing. It's not an easy thing to do, man. I'm trying to tell you, because I see a lot of people. They're like, man, just stop doing drugs, man. Just go to a rehab to get clean. It's not that easy. I'm trying to tell you, because people start doing drugs because they want to be happy, you know. Their life is not where it was. They're not. I don't know. They're just trying to feel good, right? But after doing drugs for so long, your body gets used to it, and you can't quit it. You really can't. You at that point, you're just doing drugs to feel normal, you know. But yeah, I think I covered everything in this live stream for the gangs and stuff. I talk a lot more about my prison time in my other videos. So if you wanted to hear about prison stories that I did, yeah, congratulations to all sobriety in the room. Yeah, if you want to hear about some of my other prison stories, visit my my channel. I got a whole bunch of live streams and where I tell my prison stories, you know, and all my stories are 100% real. Cause that's one thing I can't stand is somebody get on here and be telling some fake ass stories. I can't stand that because when you're in prison and jail, you're in there with hundreds of people. So there's hundreds and thousands of people that know what I went through. If you did time, you know what I'm talking about. A prison is like a fucking town, man. It's people everywhere. And it only takes like one story. If it didn't happen the way you say it happened, and everybody finds out, like you lose credibility. Credibility. It's kind of like respect. You can't lose your respect. But yeah, Mosley, yeah, if you're out there struggling, man, keep your head up, man. There's always somebody out there that's got it worse than you. Somebody once told me that. They said, no matter how hard you think you got it right now, it could always be, harder. And that's true, man. It always get worse. Just be thankful for what you got and try to make the best out of it and take every day at a time. And I'm telling you, you're going to have your ups and downs. You can't stay down forever. Eventually, you got to come back up. Nothing stays the same. So you got to take the good with the bad. If you didn't have bad days, you wouldn't know how good the good days were. If every day was a good day, you wouldn't know how special it was. Those bad days, tell you how good, those good days are. Yeah, I ain't gonna lie. The rehabs, sometimes they don't work. Cause I got into a car accident, right? and my tibia and fibia, it's a bone. I think it's a bone in your leg, right? They broke. Like, you know, my legs were like this in the car. And then to like brace myself, I put my one leg out like that, and then like cracked and went up like that. So I broke my leg. The doctor said I wasn't even gonna be able to walk again, right? So I started taking Percocets and stuff like that. Man, I got so bad on that stuff, man. I'm trying to tell you. If I woke up and I didn't have one of those pills, I was a fucking monster, man. I'm telling you. I wanted everybody to be miserable just like me. I had to stop, man. The only way I stopped was going to jail. Cause I checked my family checked me into a rehab, right? But you know, I got there and I just signed myself out. And they lost their money because they didn't get no refund. So everybody was hating me for that. They was like, damn, we tried to help you and you just made us waste our money. You know, they were mad as shit. They didn't even let me come back in the house. They didn't. They left me. I remember I had to sleep out in the fucking the dirt one night. I do remember that. I was bad, man. I ain't gonna lie. I wasn't bad like, you know, out in the streets and stuff like that, but for one night I was. They didn't let me back in the house because they were so pissed off. And you know, the only way I got clean was getting going to jail, because that's one thing jail will do. If you're having a bad habit out there, you know, and you're speeding before you crash and burn, jail is gonna slow you down, man. It's gonna slow you down to help you. And why you want to get clean? You want to have a certain life, man. I'm telling you, you're gonna have that. Just keep on the right track, man. And please stay away from bad influences. If you have a friend that you know is still doing that stuff, thank you for that, Pat. If you got a friend that's still doing it, you can't be friends with them. You got to stay away from all of the bad influences. You got to cut them off completely. You know, you just got to let them know. You know, you say I'm trying to do better for myself. You know, like for me, when I got out of prison, I moved away from where I grew up at Hagerstown. Because the first week I was out, everybody was trying to get me to go back in the streets and do dumb stuff, man. Thank you for that, Alexia. But everybody was trying to get me to go back in the streets. So I was like, man, fuck this. So I just moved away. I moved like 2 hours away. And, you know, I ain't had no problem since. Because I don't know anybody out here. So, you know, all I got to do is worry about me now. Because it comes a time in your life where you got to worry about yourself, man. Can't be worried about everybody else, man. You can't, you know, be that one person that everybody calls. Sometimes you got to work on yourself first. And the only way to do that is you got to get away from all the bad influences, man. If you let one person around you that's still negative, it's going to affect you, man. It will slow you down. But I believe, like, if you're even trying to get better, you know, that's a good step. But yeah, I'm gonna take a break, guys. I wanted to get on here and explain the gang life and all that. I think I did. I think I covered everything there is to cover about the gang life. I don't want anybody thinking that I was trying to glorify anything, because I never ever was. You know, I hated what I had to go through, and I don't want to see anybody else go through that. That's for one. And everything that I get on here and say, I hope it helps somebody out there. You know. But if you're rocking with me, hit that like button on the way out and check out some of my other videos. I just posted a video right today, right? And it's mugshots, right? I went online and found these mugshots, and it had some crazy backstories. I like that. I like doing that video. I think I'm gonna do more of those. But it had James Harden on there. He got caught with a gun, you know, and they locked his ass up for that. And it had some other crazy people on there. Check it out, man. It's the last video I did on my page, man. Tell me if y'all like it. I enjoyed making that video. I ain't gonna lie. But yeah, if you in here, thank you for coming. Thank you for listening to me. You know, don't let the trolls get to you. You know, let it wash over you. Don't pay that stuff no mind. But yeah, I'm gonna take a break. Everybody stay safe. Stay out the streets, man. There ain't no love in the streets. That's for sure. Ain't no love in the streets. Streets love nobody.